Hello, and a good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you, the good people of Tube. Hope today, hope you are feeling grand and all is well in your world. Hello there, everybody. Moo! He's lost his mind already, and the day is but a dawning. And we have the whole day to go. Anyway, moving along. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Q&A Wednesday. Let's dive into question one, shall we? Splosh. Let's go. So, question one is... Calm down. What? The intro jam's got me all like... Anyway, question one today is, what is the easiest way to refinish a guitar, and what are the pitfalls of spray paint? Okay, I'm far from an expert on this kind of refinishing guitars thing. I've done it to a few of my guitars. I did this, I did that. There's no guitars down here that I've done, is there? No, there isn't. But and I'm not very good at it, to be honest with you. But I can do it to a kind of like an okay standard, but I can't do it to a very good standard because I'm not that skilled. But I would say the easiest way to refin a guitar, I don't know. I mean, what I did originally, the first guitar I refinished was my vintage V6 Icon. And what I did with that was simply oversprayed an off-white colour over the original black finish. And I would say that's the easiest way to refinish a guitar and change the colour of a guitar, is just overspraying it. The pitfalls of overspraying are gloss finishes. If you're gonna overspray, it's probably best to sand down the original finish to more of a satiny matte kind of finish. So when you overspray, the paint can adhere to it better than it can like a shiny gloss finish. Because if you were to overspray over, say, the Chapman or the Tokai here, or say the Lemon Drop or the Epiphone or even the Heartwood, because their finish is so high gloss, it would run. It'd be prone to, the paint would run. And again, that's the pitfalls of spray paint as well. Is the paint can run if you overdo it in an area. You've got to be so. Spray painting, I've always thought, is an art form. You know, to watch people spraying guitar bodies and getting bursts and stuff like that, I've always seen it as an art form, and I am totally cack-handed when it comes down to doing anything like that. But the best way, or the easiest way, like I would say, is to go over your original finish. That's the easiest way. But what you have to do is you have to take the guitar apart down to its bare bones, basically. So if you're doing a Stratocaster, you need to take everything away from the guitar apart from just the body. If you're doing a Les Paul, you need to take away all the electronics and the bridge, you know, all the hardware, basically. Everything on here, so it's just the bare bones of the guitar. And then obviously you can mask off the fretboard and you can mask off the sides of the body if needs be. You know, same with Telecasters as well, you know, that kind of thing. But then, like I say, what you'd have to do is you have to sand the high gloss off. Because I've tried to overspray a couple of guitars with high gloss. I originally did it on my Jimi Hendrix Strat, which is up on the wall there. And originally that had a two-tone sunburst and it was high gloss. And my initial spray of it, because I sprayed it kind of like a white colour, except to my Jimi Hendrix's, it just ran. It wasn't until I sanded the polyurethane finish to like a matte finish. It was really, it was very like you know, it was a bit scuffed up. It wasn't until then when I sprayed it again, it really stuck. But my unfortunate mistake on that time round was I used a matte spray paint and the guitar ended up looking like a Trebor soft mint. Well, actually no, a Trebor extra strong mint, and it didn't look very cool. It had the texture of a Trebor strong mint as well, so it wasn't a cool looking guitar until I got it professionally refinished in nitrocellulose. So now it looks cool. It didn't then. Anyway, so yeah, that would be probably the best. That would probably be the best and easiest way if you're going for the easy route, is to just overspray over the original finish. If you want to take a little bit more time, what I would recommend personally is to get the original finish off. and get it down to bare wood. That has issues in the fact of some cheaper guitars aren't wood, aka Mr. Battercaster here. This guitar, this is not made of wood. It's like MDF or something. I don't actually know what the wood is. It's just basically like particle board or whatever they call it. But this isn't real wood, and it doesn't look very cool. It does actually. I reckon this guitar looks absolutely amazing. But it's quite hard to kind of like, this wood's really soft. So if you use a heat gun on this thing, it invariably it'll catch fire, which is what's happened to this guitar, and it tends to look a bit messy and not particularly very nice. But saying that, I reckon this looks great. I don't know. I'm contradicting myself here, but that's okay, because there is method in my madness somewhere in here. So what I'm trying to get out there is not all guitars are a real wood, and the body can look ugly, and depending on what kind of finish you're going for, you have to take that into account. So for instance, like, if I was to strip this black off, and then I do it like a three-tone sunburst, it wouldn't look particularly good because of it's not wood, and it would look a bit naff. If I was doing this one solid colour, if I was like, say, I'm just going to respray this thing black again, like back to kind of like, how it was when it was new, then it would probably, not probably, it would look fine. But anything bursty or transparent is going to look naff because it's not real wood. It's rough and it's not particularly very nice. I have been toying with the idea of getting a different body for the guts of this guitar, like the neck and everything, but I can't because this body is just it's so cool and it's so knackered and I love it. Anyway, what's the easiest way to refin a guitar? Like I say, I reckon overspray. I'm a bit out of my depth with this question. I bet you can't tell because all I've ever done really is just either oversprayed or just strip the body back to the wood, making sure it is real wood. Like I say, if I was to refinish the Battercaster, I wouldn't really. If the Battercaster was pristine. If I got a guitar down here with like a poly finish that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. This is quite difficult to answer actually. I would just go the overspray route, but I say make sure you kind of sand down the original finish first, just make sure it's kind of like a matte finish, because then the spray paint can adhere to it. But again, another thing about spray paint is you've got to be very patient with it, and you've got to be really careful. If it's in rattle cans, you've got to be really patient with it and careful with it, because if you start kind of layering it on like too quick, it will just run, and then you'll get runs, and it won't look very neat and tidy. Personally, I've never been that bothered about that because I'm not that much of a perfectionist when it comes down to refinishing guitars. Once it's all about kind of like diving in and swimming and flying with the seat of your pants kind of thing with me when I do guitars. Like the Revelation, I had no idea how this guitar was going to turn out when I started to strip off the cherry burst. I just know I didn't want the cherry burst, and whatever was underneath was going to be better aesthetically for me and more pleasing aesthetically for me. And it was a case of, it wasn't initially like that looking good. It took a lot of work to get it to kind of like where I'm happy with it, and I love it now. This is my favourite Les Paul I own. Sorry, Thumb Drop, sorry Epiphone, but this one's got you beat. Not say you're not you're gorgeous guitars, don't get me wrong. You are gorgeous guitars, and I love you both. But anyway, I'm just having a little bit of a powwow with my guitars. Anyway, yeah, I would say the easiest way to refin a guitar is just overspray. Depending on what you're doing. I say if you want to go a bit further, get a heat gun, you can strip off the finish. Like I say, be careful with a heat gun in general, because you can split the body. You can break the glue joints of what's holding the body together. If it's more, if you've got a guitar that's like a 4-piece or a 2-piece or a 3-piece body, you can split it. And even if you've got a 1-piece, the heat gun can open up cracks and it can split the wood. So you've got to be really careful. But yeah, I mean, I would say the easiest way is just overspray. It's so, it's just dead simple. You just have to take all the bits out of the guitar, rough up the finish with, not ridiculously rough sandpaper, quite fine. So I would probably say about 400 grit sandpaper, 400 maybe 600 grit sandpaper will do the job, and then just overspray. I would just say that, and then you also, not only the fact that you have your proper finish. But if you're using kind of like nitrocellulose lacquer to go over the top, or just like normal spray paint, that spray paint and that lacquer will wear, and eventually you'll get the original finish underneath, which looks really. I like oversprays, so it looked really cool. Unless you don't want that, in which case you need to go down the heat gun route. Anyway, I think I've talking nonsense most of this answer, so I do apologise. My brain's just gone. You are literally talking the S word, so shut your mouth, Dave. So I'm gonna try and not listen to that voice, but I am at the end of that. Shut up. Anyway. The wars we have with our minds, eh? Aren't they fun? Anyway, moving along. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's not the best answer in the world. I do apologise. I'm not that clued in on refins and stuff like that. I'm not the best person to ask about that. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, I know there is. I know there's a lot of people out there who could answer that question a lot better than me, but I hope there's something in that for you, like I say, the overspray idea, and if not, go the heat gun route and take off the original finish and stuff like that, and just see how you go, really. Just see what feels right, and it is a case of kind of like you do have to kind of like dive in and swim, really. If it's a case of learning as you're doing it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It's just one of those things. So anyway, yeah, I hope there's something in there. Anyway, I do apologise. It's not the best answer in the world. It's probably the worst answer I've ever given. But hopefully there's something in there. So I do apologise in advance for my terrible answer. But hopefully there's something in. Okay, so I'm going to move on to question 2 now, everybody. Hopefully I can answer this one a little bit better. So question 2 is, what do you think to Keith Richards as a guitarist? Do you like his style and playing? Yeah, I mean, the thing I love about Keith is he makes no kind of excuses for the fact he says himself he's not a very good guitarist. I heard him say once in an interview, between him and Ronnie Wood, both of them together make an okay guitarist. But that is so wicked. But he knows what he knows his limitations, which I think is a massive must know for any guitarist. Know your limitations, know what you can do and what you can't do, and just play to your strengths. Keith plays to his strengths all the time. Keith is a wicked songwriter, and he is, I think he's a great guitarist. He's come up with some of the most amazing guitar riffs, and did the whole 5-string guitar thing, in open G as well. He was the first person to do that because I think he said in an interview he got fed up of standard tuning. He was looking for something different. And the thing is about that open G tuning is that anything you do in it now in open G with a certain extent sounds like Keith Richards. He's got his own sound. He found his own little niche. Yeah, technically he's not proficient. Guitar, like he said. He doesn't really do guitar solos. He said himself like he's not a very good guitarist. But it's not the point of Keith's playing. It's not about being the best, most technically able guitarist in the world. It's all about music. You know what I mean? It's all about kind of what can he make with the instrument? You know what I mean? What will it do? How will it speak in a song? And that is wicked. I love that about him. You know what I mean? Like I say, he doesn't claim to be a virtuoso. He doesn't claim to be a great player or this, that, and the other. But it's Keith Richards. Everyone knows who Keith Richards is. Everyone knows who Rolling Stones are. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is, you can be the most technically proficient guitarist in the world doesn't mean you're going to change people's lives with music, which is always been kind of my goal, is to connect with people with music. And so I identify with Keith Richards and the fact of kind of like, he's not, technicality is not the be all and end all of trying to kind of like, you know, of music. There's that kind of obviously it's really why am I finding it so difficult today to find my words? It's because I've got a lot on my mind, Dave, that's why. Anyway, so he's just got that ability to connect, and I love that. Yes, his playing's not, you know, perfect and neat and this, that, and the other, but it's got attitude, and he means it, and he's got passion to it, and he can still play, and you know, he like I say, he got rid of the low E string and put it in open G and carved out that little niche for himself, like I say, to the point where that's the Rolling Stones. No ifs, no buts. That's Keith Richards. That's his style. It's much in the same way as you can kind of do this. And you go, that's Jimi Hendrix. You know, and you can kind of also kind of like do other things here and there. You can do kind of and go, it's John Frusciante. You know what I mean? All these people have like a real distinctive way about them. You know what I mean? Like Rory Gallagher. Got that kind of Irishy, Celtic-y sound to him, no matter what he did. You know, it's got that sound. I don't know how well you'll be able to hear this guitar, actually, but, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan has got his own sound, and Keith has his. He is, you know, Keith Richards is Keith Richards, no ifs, no buts. And that is awesome. And like I say, do I like his style and his playing? Yeah, I don't know how you couldn't, because there's so much to get from it. On, you know, not even the fact of like, you know, how it in like his songwriting ability and arranging kind of thing like that, but like it if you can't shred, guitarists like Keith Richards show you don't have to. You don't need to. If you can't sweep pick, guitarists like Keith Richards show you don't need to be able to do any of that if you don't want to do it. There's no rules, there's no hard and fast rules to, you know, when you learn guitar, you should strive to be better than everybody else. It's not the point, you know, it's not the point. It's not a competition. And I still love that line that he says, like I've already said it, like, you know, between him and Ronnie Wood, both of them make an okay guitarist. You know, he knows where he is. He knows his limitations. He knows, in all fairness, I reckon he puts himself down a bit too much, actually. I think he's a better guitarist than he says. It's like Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, there's just something very special and magical about players like Keith Richards. There's just something in them. You know, same way with Jeff Beck and all those guitarists, you know, Eric Clapton, Peter Green, Jimi Hendrix, Pete Townsend, you know, all Stan Webb, you know, all these guitarists, you know, Danny Kirwan, I could go on. They have something supremely special about them, and that makes them them. And Keith has his, and Eric Clapton has his, Steve Ray Vaughan has his. You know, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm talking nonsense again. I'm in crippling self-doubt mode now, everybody. So I do apologise. My brain is just going, you don't know what you're on about, shut your mouth. So I do apologise if I am talking nonsense, because my brain's telling me I am. So I'm in a war now between me and my head, so this is going to be fun. Okay, but yeah, I do like Keith's playing style. I like his sound. I love his... Somebody asked him, "Oh, why do you never use pedals?" He says, "Well, I don't want. I just, you know, my sound. If my sound isn't coming out the amp only," he says, "I'm not interested." There's that amazing picture, isn't there, of Keith Richards? Like, he's up against his amp way back when on a Rolling Stones gig, and there's loads of beer cans on top of his amp, and it says, "This is Keith Richards' pedal board." Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But yeah, so I reckon it's great. Like I said, I reckon he's better than he says he is, because I've always thought he was. You know, he's got that kind of that classic playing style of like, you know, of his era. You know what I mean? And he is what he is. You know what I mean? There's no ifs, no buts. It's like when you listen to Iron Maiden, they are what they are, and you listen to other bands, and they are what they are. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They just are this. This is what we are. Like it or lump it. You know what I mean? And I like that. And Keith Richards has always been that guitarist of like, you know, this is what I do. I'm not the world's most technically proficient guitarist in the world. I'm not particularly the most perfect guitarist in the world, but this is what I do. You either like it or you don't. Either way. And I think that's wicked. And I like that. So, and again, you know, he's a legend. And he's a legend because of, like, you know, who he is and what he's accomplished in life. And, like, you know, that's just wicked. I don't like everything the Rolling Stones have done. I don't. But you can't fail to, like, you know, that they mean it. And that it means their world. It is their world. You know what I mean? The fact they still do it. And they still go out there and they perform these big shows. And it's just like, you know, wow. You know what I mean? What? I envy him. I envy his life, Keith Richards' life. You know what I mean? That ability that they had back then will never come again, I don't believe. Especially not in my lifetime anyway. Of just that kind of like, you know, this group of lads can get together, write a couple of songs, and, you know, young lads, teenagers, and then when they get to their 70s and 80s, are still able to do it. I mean, yes, please, I'll have that life. Even with the crazy excesses of drugs and drink and stuff like that, which I've never really wanted to go down that route. It doesn't really appeal to me. But, you know, it's such a, I don't know, it's so cool. Anyway, but yeah, I do like Keith Richards' style and playing, definitely. I'm getting bored of my head already. Just shut up there. Okay, so I do apologise, everybody. It's going to be this weird toing and froing now. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to move on to part 2 of question 2. Is, what happened to your Fender Champion 100 and Fender 50 LX? XL. Dyslexia kicking in there, everybody. Okay, so what happened to the Fender Champion and the 50 XL? I traded the 50 XL with my friend Dan for something else, and the Fender Champion 100 I sold. Simply because, yeah, you said in your reviews you were really kind of like, you know, you loved them, and I do. I definitely prefer the 50 XL over the Champion. The Champion's good, but I think the 50 XL is better. In all fairness, I've been thinking recently about buying another 50 XL, but I won't. It'd be pointless. The simple reason is I love them so much, but they're not what but tonally, that they sound great, but for me, tonally, they're not what I'm after. They don't quite have the sound that I want. And Fender amps never have. There's only been one Fender amp I've ever plugged into that's given me exactly what I want. And that was the Fender Stage 100 DSP 112 combo. And I had that amp for years, and I used it a lot, actually. I used it extensively for rehearsal because I didn't have to take a pedal board, because I had a 4-way foot switch that gave you a difference between clean OD1 and OD2, and then you could have reverb, and then you could have an effect on top of that. So I never really needed a pedal board with that thing, apart from a wah-wah pedal. I always used a wah-wah because I like the high-end roll-off that a wah-wah gives you. Come to think of it, I never ran that Fender amp, the Fender Stage, without a wah-wah pedal. I never ran it without a wah-wah pedal. Even if I didn't use the wah, it was always in line with it, just because it rolled off the high. And I also did the Steve Ray Vaughan gaffer tape trick with it as well. So on the inside of the grill cloth I had an asterisk of gaffer tape to, again, cut down the high end coming from the actual amp. Without that, the amp still sounded great, but with it, it sounded more to my ear. I like darker, warmer sounds, you know what I mean? I just prefer that. That appeals to my ear a lot more. I like it to cut, but I don't like it harsh, you know what I mean? And the problem with the 50XL was it was amazing, and I love that amp so much, and I do actually miss it, to be honest with you. I do miss the 50XL. I miss quite a few amps I've owned in the past, but the 50XL was still a Fender amp through and through. No matter what I threw in it, like pedal wise or EQ wise, it was still always a Fender. And the same thing with the Champion, no matter whatever I threw at it, and the same thing with the Frontman 212 actually as well that I had. No matter what I threw at it, they were always just a Fender amp, and you know, their DNA is made up in that kind of like, you know, that American tone, and I just don't connect with it. I don't connect with it at all. It just doesn't work for me. So I love them as amps, but what they eventually do to me is much in the same way as kind of a few amps in my past have done, is I know what I want, and eventually if that's not there, I get disinterested in it. And when I start to get disinterested in something like that, I just stop using it, and I go back to what I've always used, which is invariably normally the Marshall MG. I always point at things off camera. There's an MG in the corner, everybody. I do apologise. But yeah, because as soon as I go back to that MG or my Orange or the Boss Katana, I'm reminded of what I want. What that sound in my head. I'm reminded 100%. Well, that's what I want. That's what I hear. And when I go into like something like a Fender or a Mesa Boogie or a Black Star or certain Voxes, not all Vox amps, but certain ones, I'm kind of robbed of a certain something. Is it a bad thing? No, but it can be a detrimental thing to the amp. It's basically my kind of failing of like, it's not giving me what I want, so I don't get bored of it. I get disinterested. It's slightly different because I still love playing through them, but I'm just like, if you put the Fender XL next to the Boss Katana, which I did, and I went between both of them, I was just like, the XL is just, it just isn't giving me exactly what that sound that I feel is giving me. So when I went to the Katana, I was like, oh, there it is. Yeah, that's that sound. When I went to the XL, I was like, it's there, but it's lacking something. And invariably, it was normally kind of like there's this kind of like high end in a Fender amp, and it's there in, I hear it in Mesa Boogie and Black Star, and in all fairness, some kind of like modern Marshalls like the TSL and the JCM 2000s. You know, there's a kind of like a high end that doesn't go away, and I don't like that frequency. It really affects me on a level where I become really disinterested in the sound that thing makes, and sometimes I have to be reminded. I remember last year I plugged back into my Fender XL. I say my friend Dan owns it now, and I plugged back into the Fender XL, and I was playing on it. It was at a band practice for Dukes Deluder before we split up, and I was playing. I'm going, oh, this is amazing. Why did I ever trade it? Anyway, we went back to our usual setups after the break, and I went back to my Boss Katana. And as soon as we started the song, and I strummed the first chord on my Katana, I was like, there it is. That's why I got rid of it. It's lacking in certain things for me. It's just not quite there, if that makes any sense. So, I do love the Fender Champion. The Fender Champion was amazing. If you're after a Fender amp, Fender Champion, awesome. The 50XL, I still would recommend as better. The Champion's awesome. The 50XL is double awesome. But they don't give me what I want. So as much as I love them, they're not there for me. You know what I mean? They're not quite to the sound level. They're not giving me the sound that I want, that I can feel, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, I do love them, and if I turned up at a gig where I couldn't use my own amp and there was a 50XL on stage or a Fender Champion on stage for me to use, I'd be a happy little bunny. It wouldn't bother me, you know what I mean? I'd be quite happy to use it. Because I would just make that, that tiny, tiny sacrifice for that gig. It wouldn't bother me at all. I'd be more hesitant if it was Blackstar, because I really do not like Blackstar amps. They really grate on me. As amps go, them and Mesa Boogie I've never ever connected with, to the point where I just avoid them like the plague. I really do. They just don't work for me. There's just something in them. Anyway, that's beside the point. But yeah, Fender Champion and 50XL, gorgeous amps. They're just not for me. As much as I love them, and I really wanted the Champion to connect. Like I said, but the thing is, the only Fender amp that's ever connected with me was the Stage 100 DSP. And if I ever find one again, they seem to be like hen's teeth. If I ever find a Stage 100 again, I will be buying it immediately. If it's obviously within reason of kind of like, collection and stuff like that, because, I can't afford to have things shipped over from wherever to get it. But the Stage 100 DSP, that amp, I would say out of all the amps I've sold that I've gone in the past, so for instance, like, the Fender Champion, the 50XL, the Custom, KGA, what else have we got? The PV Bandits and stuff like that. Out of all those amps, the one I miss the most is the Fender Stage. I've spoke about it before at length and stuff like that, and I'll try not to bore you too much. But there is something in that Fender amp that was just so special. Yes, it still had the Fender thing, but it was so different to anything else, and it really connected. And the thing that really guts me is I didn't need to sell the amp. I could still have it. I didn't need to sell it. I didn't need the money at the time. It was just one of those weird whims. And I even thought, I actually sold it at Old Hat. I sold it to Norman at Old Hat before I worked there. And even as I walked out the shop that day, I was like, I've made a mistake. I knew I'd made a mistake, but I didn't. And funnily enough, I went back like 2 weeks later and the amp was still there. And I looked at it and thought, buy it back, Dave. Buy it back. Buy it back now. My brain was literally, I was screaming, buy it back, buy it back, buy it back. And I didn't. And I went back again and it'd gone. And that literally kills me. And I'm sure we've all got a story like that. And I had my chance to get it again. I had a second chance and I blew my second chance. Idiot. So if you ever get that feeling, people of a tube, go with it and do what it feels. Do what it feels like you should be doing, because if you don't, you might not get a chance again. It's so important to go by that kind of that gut feeling of like, if you feel you're doing something wrong, you're doing something wrong. If you feel like you want to do something, you kind of have to at least try to do it, obviously within reason of kind of what that thing is. You've got to think about it. It's like, if you want, on a deeper kind of like level, if you want to tell somebody you love them, tell them you love them. These days, it's more important than ever. Because there's so much doubt in the world right now. Horrific doubt, and this is the reason why I'm scatterbrained today. Everybody, I'm finding it really, really hard to cope, to be honest with you. And I've been in a really, 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 really dark place over the last couple of days. And it's just, over the last week has been really difficult. And I've just been kind of like doing this. And like I say, the other day, thanks to my friends, I was able to kind of like get kind of out of the water that I was drowning in. But I'm always dipping my toe in there, you know what I mean? I'm never free of that, and that's why I'm scatterbrained today. I'm just kind of like, I'm struggling to kind of keep my mind level onto what I'm supposed to be doing. So, like I say, going by feel is so important. Again, not just in music, but in kind of in life, really. There's so many opportunities and so many things I've missed because I didn't say or do what I felt like I should have been doing. And if I had done, things would have probably been better, or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'll never know. And that Fender Stage is a kind of classic example of like second chances. It was almost, weirdly enough, as soon as I walked in, well, it wasn't as soon as I walked in the shop. I walked into Old Hat the day it was there, and I should have bought it back. And I walked down into the lower area of the shop, and it was literally in the middle of the floor. Like, somebody obviously tried it, and it was literally in the middle of the floor, and it was like it was staring at me. And it was like, you need to buy me again. You want me to come home with you. And I didn't. And I absolutely... It really does. It kind of almost breaks my heart that I didn't do that, and I missed that amp so much. Like I said, over any amp I've got, that was one of those amps that I had a connection with, and I shouldn't have got rid of. You know what I mean? It's really silly. Really, really silly. So yeah, the Fender Champion and the Fender 50XL, stunning amps, just not quite right for what I was after. And I really, really, really wanted them to work out. I mean, the Champion, the 50XL, we had a bit of a rocky start, we did. The fact it came with no kettle lead, and I was a bit like, I don't know about this. But as soon as I did certain things to it and stuff like that, I did fall in love with it. And I do love it. And I love the Champion 100. The Champion 100 was an absolute stunning amp, but they were just not quite what I needed and wanted, if you know what I mean. They weren't quite the sound that I feel, if that makes any sense. So yeah, anyway, so I hope that's the question. I'm going to move on to question 3 now, otherwise I'll talk about that all day and bore you all to tears. So I'm going to move on to question 3. So question 3 is there a way to get nice clean tones without rolling back the volume? Yeah, multiple ways. You don't need to use the volume control to get cleans. You don't. You can do the whole thing of turning pedals off and on, which is something I prefer to do. For the longest time, I did the volume rollback thing. I was using a Marshall Governor, an Electro Harmonix double muff pedal, and I would just ride the volume control. And for a long time that worked, but I never 100% bonded with that technique. It was always kind of like, when I want it to go to a cleanish tone, because I don't really like super, super clean. Another reason why Fenders never connect with me is that super, super clean. But when I want to go to my cleanish kind of John Frusciante inspired tone, I want to get to it immediately. I don't want to have to roll down the volume and find the sweet spot on my volume. I just want it off and straight to it. And when I want to go to kind of like a rock kind of rhythm tone, I want to go straight to it. I don't want to kind of like be rolling the volume in and trying to find the sweet spot. I know there's a certain charm in doing that, definitely, because it gives you a difference in tone, and it gives variety. But I'm not that kind of person. I always talk about this. I love consistency. I like to go from, I like when things sound the way they sound. I like when things kind of work the way I want them to work. And so for instance, like on my pedal board, my main cleanish tone is either my Tone City Golden Plexi or a jackhammer. And say for instance, like I'm playing an intro jam where I want to, or a gig or whatever, I'm running that, and I want to go to a more heavy tone. I don't want to have to roll the volume up. I want to hit a pedal and it immediately happen, not the kind of gradual roll of the volume, which is really cool, but I like it immediate. I always like that immediacy of pedals, you know what I mean? Where it's like, and it's in. You know what I mean? There's no kind of like, again, finding that sweet spot or anything like that. It's just immediate and it's just on you straight away. So I like that thing with like, if I'm on a cleanish tone and I want to go to a heavier tone, I can just like stamp on the DS2 or the Marshall Governor and it's immediate. And the same thing with going back to cleanish. If I'm saying I'm playing with a DS2 on and say the jackhammer, I want to go back to that cleanish tone immediately to drop dynamic. I don't want to be fumbling with the volume control trying to get it in the right vicinity of the volume drop. I want it immediate. Because there has been some times where I've tried to do that and I've turned the guitar off by accident. I've rolled the volume down too far. And about a year and a half ago, I went back to that way of playing, which is what I'd always done. I only really did the volume control thing for about 2.5 years, give or take. And then as soon as I went back to just turning pedals off and on, instead of using volume control, I immediately was so much happier. So there's that way of doing it. You don't have to roll your volume control down to get clean tones. You can use pedals. And I've always done that anyway. That was always the way it was, from the get-go. I love the idea of, like I say, the immediacy of different sounds with pedals. If you want more distortion, you can add more distortion. If you want to add chorus in it or delay, they're immediate. And the whole concept of gain to me is like, you can go from that John Frusciante cleanish tone to full-on distortion in a microsecond. And I like that. I don't like the idea of kind of like, because there is a slight, rolling the volume in does give you a slight time delay, and it's not immediate, unless you're really quick with the volume control. You can get those kind of like really quick, speedy kind of volume knobs, but it's still not quick enough. You know what I mean? There's that kind of like microsecond delay where not microsecond delay, but that kind of like that split second delay. That's what I want to say. Where there's that, it's almost like a hesitation on the sound because you're rolling it up, you know what I mean? And I don't like that. I definitely prefer I will use the volume control, definitely, but I definitely prefer to leave my guitar's volume on 10 and the tones on 10 and just do everything with pedals. I don't know. That's just the way it's always worked better for me. And I say, going back to that and doing a couple of gigs with that, and I was doing it with Dukes Deluder, with the Line 6 HX and stuff like that, immediately made me a lot happier than riding the volume control. Riding the volume control is really cool, but I find it doesn't really work for me. So there's always that route to go down. I'm not sure if there's any others, but there's volume pedals as well. You can get volume pedals where you can kind of like the Zoom's got it actually. The Zoom G5N here, that's got a gain volume thing. So basically, like, if the expression pedal's like heel down, you get clean, and the further you push the pedal up, you get distortion, and that gives you the ability to kind of like flip flop between really quickly actually with a pedal. Pearl Jam did it in 92 to 94ish. Mike McCready and Stone Gossard, they had a Ernie Ball volume pan pot pedal. Try and say that when you're drunk. Basically, what they did is they ran a Fender into one side of a pedal, and then they ran a Marshall, usually a JCM 800, but later on Stone went to the PV Classics. Mike stuck with the 800 for a while actually, but their classic setup was a Fender, into one side of a pedal, and then a Marshall into the other side of a pedal. So when it was heel back, it was just the Fender amp, so perfectly clean Fender. And then as they rolled the pedal forward, it would bring in the Marshall. So when they got toe down, it was just the Marshall. And the really cool thing is that Mike and Stone said is they could blend the two in the middle. So, and you can hear it really well on gigs like Pink Pop 92. And you can hear it really well. And you can see them doing it as well. It's really cool. And I've always wanted to try that. It just really appeals to me. I would get bored of it very quickly, I can imagine. But I would still like to try it. But, I mean, there's that option as well. So you have two different amps. So one set up for clean, one for distortion. You either have an AB box or a pan pot volume pedal. Just to kind of switch between the two. I can't think if there's any other ways. I say that they're the ways I could think of. Oh, Matt Bellamy did it as well. Actually, Matt Bellamy was another guy. He had a. I don't actually understand how his rig actually ran, but if you look at the Hullabaloo gig, which I think is 2002 or 4, I forget now. The Hullabaloo gig at the I think it's in Paris. Matt has a volume pedal which he uses to roll off gain. His gain never rolls. The volume never cuts out. He rolls the pedal back and it's clean, and he pushes it forward and it's distorted. And I'm not 100% sure how he does that with that setup, because Matt Bellamy's setups have always been a mystery, and they're always really complex, especially now more than ever. But I'm guessing he's running 2 amps or 1 amp, because he has a rat distortion pedal, and the volume pedal is on the input side of that. And I'm not sure if running a volume, a kind of like a volume pedal on this side would alter the gain of the rat. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But Matt did the same thing that, I say, Pearl Jam did, where he'd roll back this volume pedal and it'd give him clean. And that works for Matt, though, because you can hear it in songs like Citizen Arrays, especially at the Hullabaloo gig, where he rolls its distortion out. And it just adds that dynamic of his sound. He uses it to such a great effect. And the thing about a volume pedal is you can treat it like a pedal, so you can just kick the thing and it will just fly forward, and immediately, in that microsecond, you've got your full gain again. Anyway, I'm going to have to move on because I'm just waffling. But yeah, anyway, there's a few ideas. People with a tube, if you know any of the others, let me know. I'm also running out of battery, so I'm really going to have to run. Okay, so last question 4. Oh my god, how the hell am I going to rush this one? Okay, so I don't want to rush. I'm going to have to try. Okay, if the battery dies, I'll just have to recharge it and then edit it in again. Okay, so if it just cuts off, I'll be back in a split second. There's a lot of split seconds going on there. Shut up, Dave! Question for question! Okay, question 4, final question of the day, is what was John Frusciante's pedal board setup at Woodstock 99? You said it seemed it's not what he would usually use. But at that point in time, that is exactly what he used. From 1998 to 2000, John's pedal board was the CE1 chorus pedal, Ibanez wah-wah pedal, MXR Phase 90, which he barely used but was there every now and again, a Boss FZ something fuzz, I forget exactly what it was, but it was a Boss fuzz pedal, and the Boss DS2. And that was it. That was his setup. For the whole Californication tour, that was his setup. There was a DS1 incorporated into the setup at certain points. It's not there all the time, but there was a DS1 incorporated just for the Gretsch, because during the Californication tour, John didn't run the Gretsch through the Marshalls. John ran the Gretsch through a Fender amp on a separate circuit into a separate cab, and the DS1 was to add distortion to that guitar for the heavy bit in other side, basically, and that was it, So yeah, that was John's setup at the time. It was very minimalist. It was very small, and I replicated it on the Zoom G5N, which I'll be doing a video on either Friday or next week. I don't know yet, because I've also replicated a Peter Green tone on the G5N and the Rory Gallagher tone on the G5N, which I want to do videos on. I want to show you the parameters and how I came about it and just do some sound examples. I don't know whether to do all of them in... I'll tell you what, people with a tube, quickly off this question. Because of what I just said, would you like to see one video where I talk about the John Frusciante tone, Peter Green tone, the Rory Gallagher tone, and any others that come up until then, in one video? Or would you like 3 separate videos on each one, where I can go into a bit more detail and stuff like that? Would you like it in one video or 3 separate ones? Let me know in the comment section below, because I don't actually know what I'm doing. So, but yeah, that was John's setup. 99, Woodstock 99, that's all he had, was those 5 pedals. Chorus, wah, phase, fuzz, and distortion. That's all he had. He did the entire Californication tour. It wasn't until the By the Way tour, when he went to a bigger board, and then once to the Stadium Arcadium tour, he went to the Mothership. It's just weird, really. But I've always preferred that style of John. I've always preferred the Californication era of John, which is why I've always gone the minimal. I like his minimalist route with pedals. I do love all the crazy effects he uses, but in all fairness, you can boil John Frusciante down to very simple effects. He's got that cleanish, dirty tone, which isn't really. That's more of an amp thing. Effects-wise, John is just like it's distortion or fuzz, wah, delay, and chorus. You can literally boil him down to those 4. You can get by doing pretty much anything apart from throwaway television with those 4 effects. You know what I mean? You don't really need anything else. You know, unless you want to do throwaway television, in which case you need a step filter. But other than that, you know, everything else that John uses, the Moog pedals, the MXR microamp, which I think is totally pointless, and other pedals, they are basically subject to requirement. You don't really need them. You know what I mean? You don't need to have multiple delay pedals. You don't need to have this, that, and the other. You know, you just need those kind of, like I say, distortion, wah, chorus, and delay. That will get you through, you know, a lot of the Chili Peppers back catalogue, if not pretty much all of it. You know, apart from, like I say, stuff like throwaway television, which is a bit weirder. Even with throwaway television, you could almost get away with using a wah pedal as a... It's not the same effect, but as a stopgap, you know, using a wah pedal in that kind of thing, you know, if you just went wah, 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 would probably kind of like... It wouldn't sound right, but, it, you know, if you had to, it'd probably, you know, work as a stopgap. But that is kind of the exception to rule for throwaway television, definitely. But anyway, but yeah, that was John's setup for Woodstock 99. He didn't have anything else. He didn't need anything else at the time. You know what I mean? It was just those pedals running to the Jubilee and the Major. And like I say, the Gretsch went into a Fender amp, which was on a separate thing altogether. You know, it wasn't until later on, during the Stadium Arcadium tour, that John started to run the Gretsch through the Marshalls. And then during the Stadium Arcadium tour, it wasn't until the Stadium Arcadium tour he used the Gretsch through the Marshalls, and then during the Stadium Arcadium tour, the Gretsch just ceased to be used. You know, he just used his Stratocasters for Other Side and Californication. When I saw him live at Don Valley at the beginning of the Stadium Arcadium tour, he didn't use the White Falcon once. I don't know if it was even there, come to think of it. I couldn't see, but he never brought out that White Falcon as far as I can remember. I remember so clearly him using it at Hyde Park, but I clearly remember him not using it, because I remember it was weird seeing him play Californication on the other side with a Stratocaster. It was like, oh, he's not using his White Falcon. It was a bit weird. So yeah, but yeah, that was John's main setup for Woodstock 99, and for the Californication tour, was those 5 pedals. It was very simple, straightforward, and I reckon it sounded absolutely glorious. And it's my favourite John Frusciante setup, which is why I've replicated it on the Zoom. It gives me enough kind of ability to do it, and I'm so happy with the results. Like I said, let me know if you want it in 3 videos or just 1 or whatever. Let me know, people of you. But I will do whichever one you want me to do. But that's my favourite John tone, is that thing. It's just really warm and dark, but at the same time it cuts, and it's just huge, and I love it. So that was John's setup at the time. It's like I say, By the Way changed, it got bigger, and then Stadium Arcadium got even bigger. But the thing is, if you look at the Stadium Arcadium footage, most of those pedals that John's got, he doesn't use. You know what I mean? Not to be funny and not to be kind of like, you know, against it, but if you look at some of those later shows, like the Poland gig, for instance, the Chorzów gig, John uses the wah pedal a lot. He uses the DS2 a lot. He also uses the fuzz a lot, which he always did. He uses the DS2 more. You can tell the difference in tone. And he uses the wah, uses distortion, fuzz, uses delay for Don't Forget Me. Obviously, you know, when they do throwaway television, he uses the step filter, but that's for one song, and they didn't always play throwaway television. So you think that all that mass load of pedals that he has, and he's only maybe using 4 or 5 max at one time, you know, he stopped using Moogs by that time for anything other than jams. The outro jam, he uses the Moogs in the outro jam at the Chorzów gig, but he doesn't use it. He uses his wah pedal in the Moog bit of Danny California. You know, he uses the DS2 and the fuzz pedal for the solos and for lead. And other than that, there's a lot there that he doesn't use. You know what I mean? It's you know, you can boil John down to bare bones. You don't need everything he used. You don't need it. It's kind of pointless. John didn't use it all the time. You know what I mean? So, you know, you just don't need it. I almost believe and feel sometimes that people like have big setups because they can. If you know what I mean. Like, you know, John didn't have to set it up. he didn't have to sound check it. Dave Lee did that for him, and because they can, they do. You know what I mean? Like, but because they can doesn't necessarily mean, and because they've got all this gear doesn't necessarily mean they use it all the time. You know, they're not Nico McBrain with that huge drum kit that he actually all uses. You know, some people have stuff that they will barely, rarely, and ever, if they ever, use it. You know, so I think a good example of, like, you know, a stadium band with a simple rig was Nickelback. I remember watching a rig rundown on Nickelback, and literally they had a Fender amp for clean and a Mesa Boogie for distortion, and they flipped between the two, and that was it. And I think Ryan Peake had a wah pedal, and that was it. That was it. They had nothing else. They didn't need anything else, you know what I mean? And the same thing with John Frusciante and a lot of these people. You can get by with the minimum effects. You can boil them down to 3 or 4 or 5 effects at a time, you know what I mean? Even people like Matt Bellamy, you can boil them down to fuzz and whammy. You know what I mean? You know, and a phase. You know, 3 pedals. You've got pretty much Matt Bellamy. Fuzz, whammy, and phase. You've pretty much got Matt Bellamy. You know what I mean? Not to, obviously, to certain other extents, but you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making any sense now. I think I'm just talking nonsense. But anyway, like I said, I do feel there is a kind of, like, you know, I can have it because I can have it, but you don't necessarily need it. You know what I mean? If you look at the Sydney jam that the Chili Peppers did in Sydney, Federation Square jam, John's barely got anything. He's got a step filter, which I think is the Line 6 modulation modeler. He's got the Digitech Blue delay pedal. He's got a DS2, and he's got a wah pedal, and he's got a Marshall Silver Jubilee, and that's it. And it sounds amazing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Be that for what it may. I don't know. But yeah, when it comes down to the setup for Woodstock, that is what John had at the time. Those 5 pedals are what he did the entire Californication tour with. Everything was run on batteries. There was no external power supplies apart from the CE1. All the other pedals, the wah pedals, the fuzz, the Phase 90, they were all run on batteries. The DS2, the DS1. The only pedal that ran off external mains was the CE1. Other than that, that was what John had. You know, it wasn't until he expanded later on. And then, again, if you look at the Slane Castle gig, you know, what does John use? He's got his cleanish tone. He's got a wah, step filter, phaser, DS2, fuzz. Have I said delay? For Don't Forget Me. And reverb. So you got 7 effects on that huge board. You know what I mean? I know some of them are additional. The 2 boards on either side are additional boards for different guitars, but you know, that's it. And in all fairness, the phase shifter and the step filter are only for 1 song. You know what I mean? So you can get rid of those, technically get rid of those 2 effects if you remove that song. So you're only down to 5. So, you know, that's the way I've always kind of seen it anyway, when going after these people tones, is look for their core tones, what are their core sounds, and go for them. You know, oh, I use a phase pedal in this song. Do you play that song all the time? No, right, it's not an important pedal for me to go after, you know what I mean? That's the way I think about it. And that's the way I think about John's pedals, to be honest with you. In all fairness, I've got, on the John Frusciante setup I've got on the Zoom, I do have a Phase 90 replica in there, but I've only got it there for aesthetics. It's there because it was there on John's board. But in all fairness, by the time the video's around, it had probably gone because I've never stood on it. I've never used it, so it's just there to fill up the space, and John had it at the time, so you know, that's why it's there. Anyway, I'm gonna have to go there, everybody. So that's all questions. That's question 4. That's the final question of the day, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. I do apologise for my scatterbrainness today. Like I say, brain isn't doing very well with everything that's going on. I'm struggling, but hopefully, you know, there's something in here you can take away. I hope it made sense. If you want to submit a question for Q&A, description box below has the email link to how to submit questions. And again, I'll see you on Friday. Like I say, for either it'll be all in one video or it'll be 3 separate videos. Let me know, people too. If you want to see a video on Peter Green separate, John Frusciante separate, and Rory Gallagher separate, let me know. But if you want to see those 3 in one video, let me know. Let me know in the comment section below, because I say I can't decide myself. So you all get final say. So let me know, people of YouTube. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great morning, afternoon, and good evening, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. Yeah, have a great one. Look after each other, stay safe, and just try and have as much fun as you can. And like I say, go by feel. Go by feel. If you want to tell somebody something or do something, but within reason, obviously, just do whatever it takes to get you through. Just do whatever it takes. We all need to find our way. So anyway, I hope this has made sense somewhat, and I'll see you again on Friday, everybody. Have a good one. Goodbye now. Thank you.